You are one of the most feared military leaders in history. You've defeated armies, conquered empires, and your name alone sends nations into a panic. And then you lose to a bunch of fluffy, long-eared rabbits. Yes, rabbits. The kind you might find nibbling carrots in your grandmother's garden. This is not a children's fable. This actually happened to Napoleon Bonaparte, and it is one of the most absurd moments in military history. It was the summer of 1807. Napoleon had just signed the Treaties of Tilsit, ending war between France and Russia. Europe was, well, not exactly peaceful, but it was the closest thing to peace France had seen in years. Napoleon decided it was time to relax, not with a beach holiday. He was not the flip-flops and sunscreen type, but with something far more manly in the 19th century. A grand rabbit hunt. This was supposed to be a private celebration for Napoleon and his officers. A day in the countryside, guns in hand, surrounded by the elite of the French army. It would show that the emperor could enjoy the simple pleasures of life, shooting small animals for sport. Now, here's where it gets interesting. To make sure the hunt was a success, Napoleon's chief of staff, Alexander Berthier, made the arrangements. He ordered hundreds, maybe thousands, of rabbits from local farmers. The plan was simple. Bring the rabbits to an enclosed field, release them, and let the officers hunt them. What could possibly go wrong? Well, everything, you see. Instead of sourcing wild rabbits, Berthier accidentally bought domestic rabbits. You know, the kind raised in hutches, fed by humans, and utterly unafraid of people. These were not stealthy woodland creatures. These were basically the fluffy equivalent of couch potatoes. The big day arrived. Napoleon and his men lined up, ready to display their skill and masculinity. The rabbits were brought in cages, trembling in anticipation. But not for the reasons you'd expect. The gates opened. Hundreds of rabbits hopped out onto the grass. Napoleon lifted his gun. The officers prepared to aim, and then, something very strange happened. Instead of scattering in fear, the rabbits turned and charged directly toward Napoleon and his men. At first, it seemed amusing. A few rabbits hopping up to the emperor. Cute, charming, even, but then dozens became hundreds. The furry mob surged forward like an adorable tidal wave. Rabbits were swarming over boots, leaping into laps, climbing onto coats. Napoleon, the man who had stared down armies, found himself surrounded by hundreds of warm, fuzzy fans. The truth was simple. These domestic rabbits thought they were being fed. To them, Napoleon wasn't a hunter. He was the man bringing lunch. Panic set in. Not because the rabbits were dangerous, but because the situation was utterly humiliating. Napoleon tried waving them away. Officers tried shooing them off with their rifles. But the rabbits kept coming. The emperor's grand hunting party turned into a desperate retreat. Men stumbled backwards, tripping over each other. Napoleon reportedly fled to his carriage, and the rabbits chased him all the way to the wheels. Imagine the scene. One of history's greatest military tacticians, driven into retreat by puffballs with whiskers. Needless to say, no rabbits were harmed in this hunt. They'd effectively won the battle without a single casualty. The incident became a running joke among Napoleon's officers, though few dared laugh too loudly in front of him. After all, he was still the emperor, just not the emperor of rabbit control. And yes, the story spread. Not as widely as his great battles, of course, but enough to live on for more than 200 years. There's something wonderfully humbling about this story. It reminds us that no matter how powerful you are, life has a way of, well, hopping in with a surprise. In modern terms, it's like a world-class gamer losing to a toddler randomly mashing buttons, or a billionaire tech mogul being taken down by a squirrel in his garden. History tends to focus on wars, treaties, and revolutions. But sometimes, the best stories are the ones that show the human, and slightly ridiculous, side of great leaders. And so, that is how Napoleon Bonaparte, conqueror of Europe, was defeated not by the British, not by the Russians, but by a battalion of bunnies. If you enjoyed this little slice of history, give it a like, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more strange and wonderful tales from the past. After all, you never know what's hiding behind the next chapter of history. Sometimes, it's rabbits.